Welcome everyone to B'nai Abraham Chabad, and we would like to begin with a prayer. Normally, when we finish our Shabbat services in the morning, every Shabbat, we end off with Psalm 20. So I'm going to read that section, that psalm in Hebrew, keeping in mind that anyone who is in need of a complete recovery should find their healing at this time. Lam natseach mizmor leDavid, Yancha Adinoi b'yom tzara, Yisagev Hashem Elohei Yaakov, Yishlach Ezracha mikodesh, umitzion Yisadeka, Yizkor kol min chaysecha v'yolascha yidash nasela, Yiten lecha chilvavecha v'chalatzascha yamale, Niranra b'shuasecha v'shem elenu niko, Yimale Adinoi kol mish alesecha. After Yadati ki Hoshea Adonai Meshichai, Yaneu Mishmei Kadsha B'Gvoros Yesha Yeminai, Eile Varechev Eile Vasusim, V'anachnu B'Shem Adonai Lenu Nazkir, Hei Makar V'Nafalo V'Anachnu Kamer V'Anis Aydad, Adonai Hoshea HaMelech Yanenu V'Yom Karenu. I'll also ask you to join me in doing a mitzvah. We're going to put some tzedakah in the tzedakah box. If you have one near you, please join me in this mitzvah. Always a good thing to do every day. And let's get started with our conversation today. We wanted to talk about the brighter side, finding the good all around us. Each one of us is blessed in so many ways, and often we get distracted by the media or other distractions that bombard us with negativity. And my goal here is to simply share some good news, some positive stories. I've been reading a book lately that's been very inspiring to me personally, and the stories that I wanted to share are in this book. The book is called Positivity Bias. And it's practical wisdom for positive living, inspired by the life and teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And what the stories are showing us how to have a positive perspective despite all of the tribulations that are happening, the challenges, the obstacles that are in our way. Right now, for the last couple of weeks, each of us have been in isolation, in quarantine, apart from our friends, family, coworkers, and being forced to shift the way we live our lives. And so it's important to turn to the Torah for guidance, for a perspective on faith, to help us navigate the turmoil that each of us is experiencing in our own way. We don't have the opportunity to come together as a community, so I thought we'd do so in a virtual setting. Many of us are finding ways to connect with others through Zoom and other channels, other mediums. But it's very helpful to stay connected. And even if we have to stay physically apart, it's important to be socially connected. The first story that I wanted to share took place in the late 60s, I believe. There was a group of women who were traveling from New York to Detroit, Michigan, for a Chabad Women's Convention. And on their way home, there were about 20 women or so. They're at the airport, and of course their flight is canceled. Why? There's a snowstorm, and all flights are canceled or postponed. So they find themselves stuck at the airport. Their families are awaiting their return home to New York. And in those days, it was possible to communicate with the Rebbe's office in New York. And so the woman decided to call the Rebbe's secretary in 770 in Brooklyn, and they asked if they could pass over a message, if they could communicate a message to the Rebbe. The Rebbe's secretary, whose name was Rabbi Klein, answered the phone, and the woman said, "Rabbi Klein, would you kindly give over a message to the Rebbe that we are traveling back home and we're stuck. We're stuck in the airport." A minute goes by, and Rabbi Klein comes back, and he says, the Rebbe wants to know what stuck means. So the woman on the other line started to explain what the meaning of the word stuck is. You know, our flight is canceled, and we had all these plans to get home. We couldn't make it due to the snowstorm. And then the Rebbe's secretary comes back and says, the Rebbe knows the meaning of the word stuck, but the Rebbe wants you to know that a Jew is never stuck. All of a sudden, the ladies realized that they're there for a mission, that the reason they're in the airport in Detroit during a snowstorm is because God sent them there for a purpose. So what do? Having been inspired by the convention to share the light of Shabbat candles with others, they had some kits with them of Shabbat candles, something like this, a little kit with 2 little tea lights in there. They went around the airport looking for Jewish women to offer them the opportunity to take these candles and to light them that coming Friday to add light and to bring brightness to their Shabbat. And the woman who told the story ended off by saying that we learned an important lesson that day, that wherever you are, you're there for a reason. God put you there for a reason. You're never stuck anywhere. And she also said that there are women around the United States today who are lighting Shabbat candles because we were stuck in Detroit back in the 60s. So I thought that was a very powerful story, and I related to it based on the situation that we're in right now. Of course, none of us planned this, and none of us decided to interrupt the flow of our lives. But our faith tells us, our Torah tells us, that everything that God does is for a reason. And if we're in a given situation, if we find ourselves in challenging circumstances, there is a mission, there is a purpose for why we're there. And our challenge is to figure out, to discover what that purpose is. Sometimes the good is hidden in plain sight. And if we just delve a little bit deeper, we discover the deeper reason of why we're here, why we're in any given situation. So we can, just like we can look at ourselves as stuck, we can choose to look at ourselves as unstuck. So that's the story. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming a dear friend as our special guest, and I am going to have a conversation with a doctor. So let me try to get him onto the screen here. Dr. Levin.
Hi.
Welcome. I'm going to introduce you. Dr. Levin is the chief of the Wills Eye Pediatric Ophthalmology and Ocular Genetics Service. He graduated from Jefferson University, completed a pediatric residency at CHOP, and Dr. Levin has many interests. Some of them include genetic eye disorders in adults and children, as well as medical and ophthalmology ethics. In January, we at B'nai Abraham had the pleasure of having you speak at our shul, and the topic was you shared with us the fascinating work that you're doing curing a genetic form of blindness in Jews, and people were really interested in that. People talking about it for a long time. So thank you for that, and thank you for agreeing to join us again for this conversation.
My pleasure. It's a privilege.
So a lot has changed in the world since we last spoke in January. And today, everyone is recognizing the importance of the work that you do as a doctor, as a medical professional, and all healthcare workers. People are realizing just how critical this industry is, this work is. So we're really, really interested to hear your perspective on how things have changed and, in your opinion, how the healthcare community has responded to these changes in our world.
You know, I'm going to take a risk and disagree with the rabbi.
Go right ahead.
Although I think things have changed, a lot of things have stayed the same. And what we're seeing is an amplification and a focus on something that was always there. And that is the dedication of our healthcare community to provide care and to provide service. One of the things that I've learned through all this, watching my colleagues, watching the people in the ICUs, watching the nurses and doctors who put themselves on the line, is that that's what we're born to do. That's what we do. It comes to us naturally, without question. I remember well when children used to die from a disorder called H flu. Now we have a vaccine for that. I remember the epidemic of AIDS. Now we have good treatment for that. We've been through many crises. Certainly this is not to be underplayed. It is a major crisis, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long, long time. But the medical care community, our nurses, our doctors, our partners, they're there all the time in the background. Nothing's changed. And every day they're putting their lives on the line, whether it be taking care of emergencies, whether it be doctors going to third world countries. All kinds of things are happening very quietly behind the scenes that we sometimes take for granted. We've really seen a flourishing not only of that activity, but the recognition of that activity. And I can tell you, as someone who's in the medical field, this is what we're born to do. There's no question. To treat patients, to take care of patients, to do research, which continues on despite this, to do education. I did a lecture this morning with students from Philadelphia, Guatemala, and the Philippines. We just keep going. It's what we love to do. It's our passion. I think we're just seeing the flower bloom a little bit right now.
Great. Well, I certainly want to express our gratitude to you and your colleagues who are on the front lines of fighting this battle. We are certainly seeing more gratitude expressed and more appreciation for people in the medical world based on the current reality. I wanted to talk a little bit about Judaism's perspective on medicine and healing in general, and to see how you feel about it from your perspective. So, go ahead.
So say the prayer of Maimonides hangs on my office wall, a very meaningful prayer. But I think that religion, spirituality, a belief in something greater than ourselves is really important now more than ever. I'm not smart enough to know why this is happening. I'm certainly not smart enough to think that I know what's right or what's wrong. It's a terrible tragedy. Thousands of people are dying, tens of thousands of people. Um, but all we can do one day at a time is try, at least for me, to try and feel that there must be some reason. There must be something in this. And if we can, as you were just saying, try to grasp the silver lining, so to speak, despite the tragedy of what we can take to move forward one day at a time, uh, that's kind of where I think Judaism and religion in general comes into play to give us that kind of strength and confidence that we're going forward. We're not going backwards.
It's actually beautiful and refreshing to hear you express that in such a humble way. Because in Judaism, we learn that God is, of course, the healer of all flesh. And in the source, in the biblical source in Exodus 21, we have the words verapo yerape, which means that it's the context there is there's a person who's injured, and the Torah describes 5 kinds of compensation that the perpetrator is responsible to pay to the victim. And one of them is that they are responsible to pay for their medical bills. And the Talmud actually derives from that we have, that this is a clear signal that the Torah is giving permission for the doctor to heal. If he has permission to heal, he then has an obligation to heal. So it becomes a mitzvah to heal the patient. But let's look at it from the perspective of the patient. You know, there are people who believe so strongly in doctors that as soon as they get sick, they run to the doctor because that's the only thing that can save them. And if they think about their work, you know, they feel like you have to make if you want to make a living, you got to work hard, and maybe you get lucky, you'll make a living. Then you have, on the other side of the spectrum, people who are just pure believers. Anything that happens to them, they pray to God. They get sick, they pray to God. They need money, they pray to God. And Judaism says that life is not so simple. We have to find the delicate balance between these two extremes. Yes, we truly believe that God is the healer of all flesh, that God is the one who is in control at all times, and yet the doctor, in this particular case, in a case of an illness, of disease, of medicine, whether it's responding to something or even preventive, the doctor is God's agent. God has empowered the doctor, given them the knowledge and the tools to be able to bring healing to the patient. And so from the patient's perspective, while remembering that God is in control and God is the healer of all flesh, the Torah itself requires that we listen to the doctor's instruction, following it to the letter, so that when the patient shows up in the doctor's office, or in this case on the doctor's screen, the patient now has a mitzvah to listen to the doctor, because the doctor is serving as God's agent to bring that person the healing that they need. So when a doctor, as you beautifully expressed, when a doctor has the humility to recognize that there are things that we don't know, that there are things that are completely beyond our control, only God knows, But yet, God has given us the power to be able to repair the things that we can fix through the tools that we have. Then we're able to each do our role. Doctor and patient are both doing what they are instructed to do through the guidance of our Torah.
I remember once you and I had a conversation about whether it's okay to make requests of God in prayers. Because generally, you might say to the contrary, we pray for that God's will be done, whatever that is. And you said, "Oh, it's okay. You can fight a little bit with God, and you can ask for different things." When it comes to medical care, a grateful patient who says, "Thank you so much," we're really just an instrument. I really believe that. I go and I do surgery. I'm a pair of hands. I do the tech. I try to do the best I can every day. I try and do the right thing every day, and I'm grateful for the gift to be able to serve patients that way. But ultimately, what's going to happen? Complications happen. Things go wrong. Patients lose their vision. Patients die, despite our very best efforts. I think our job is just to keep doing the next right thing, to keep doing the best thing that we can for our patients. And during this crisis, you kind of put aside the fact that it is a crisis. You just follow the rules and make the rules if you have to, but just go for it and do the right thing, which is to do the best we can. And the rest will be determined.
Well, you mentioned Maimonides, and Maimonides says, for the body to be healthy and complete is from the ways that we serve God. So there's an instruction in the Torah that we're supposed to keep our bodies healthy, recognizing that we need our bodies in order to fulfill our personal mission and purpose in this world. At the same time, we recognize that each of us have both body and soul. So, from a holistic perspective, if we're trying to heal the person, we need to do both. We need to pray to God. If a person is sick, it's very appropriate for them to turn to God in prayer, not instead of going to the doctor, but to complement the instructions of the doctor. The doctor is doing what they can to heal the body, but we recognize that the soul is impacted by the body's health. And so the soul turns to a spiritual measure of healing, which is prayer. It's more than prayer. Prayer is what is you could say prayer is the way it's expressed, but it comes from a person's faith and trust in God. We trust that God is good, that God has the ability to heal, and we have many stories in the Torah of people who saw a situation which was not right, and they argued with God to make it right. Abraham argued with God about saving the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Moses argued with God when he got angry at the Jewish people and wanted to destroy them. So God actually wants us to cry out when we're in pain, when we're suffering. And that is, I believe, a perfect expression of a person's faith and trust in God. And it does not negate the patient seeking the best medical care that they can possibly find. Again, because this person is God's agent. This person is God's ambassador to bring you healing. And God doesn't want you to rely on miracles. God wants you to live your life based on the laws of nature, and the natural course of things is that when a person gets sick, you go to a doctor. But you also, together with that, when you follow the doctor's instructions, and you have faith and trust in God, the healer of all flesh, that is the perfect combination that brings healing to a person's body and soul.
Very beautiful. At a time like this, it's words like that that help us be further motivated. You know, we get angry too, physicians, when it doesn't go right, when it doesn't go the way we want, when we see a disease wiping through the population like this. We as physicians, and I think the whole medical field, we like to be in control. We like to make it work the way we want it to work. I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes we don't know what's right, but getting angry and fighting hard when I see, you know, the amazing work that's been done at Wills Eye to try and keep patients safe, so they know it's safe to go there. We have people who clean the elevator buttons and push them for you. That kind of incredible dedication to making a safe environment is the kind of thing that says we're going to do everything we can to fight back. We're going to fight hard. And even if it means taking some risks ourselves, we're going to fight. And maybe you can believe a higher power brought this on for whatever reason. I don't know, but we're going to fight. And that fight is really coming out more than ever now.
Well, I also don't know why. I don't believe that anyone knows why. But what we do know is that, like we started before in the story, wherever we are, whatever situation we're in, there is a reason. And if we delve deep enough, we'll be able to find meaning and purpose in that situation. So we can't control the situation around us, but we can certainly control our reaction and the dedication with which doctors and healthcare workers are fighting this and doing everything in their power to help others, risking their own safety and health, putting themselves on the line just to do this life-saving work, is incredible and it's inspiring. And perhaps that is the reason why doctors were given this power by God, because God trusts them and commands us to listen to their instructions, to listen to your instructions. Why? Because a doctor who sees themselves as God's ambassador to bring healing, as God's messenger and agent to help others, deserves to be God's deserves that title of being God's agent, which is not a simple thing.
I think rather than power, I just use the word skill. And it's more than doctors. As I said, it's nurses and therapists and occupational therapists and every aspect of the healthcare system, each one with their own special skill set. It's a privilege we have. We take care of human beings. We take care of each other. And we're very grateful to have plumbers. We need them. We're very grateful to have every profession. Everybody has their own skill set. This just happens to be ours. And I think now we really see how we're touching lives, protecting lives every day. And I think that is the difference. Our skill set is our skill set. Why I got lucky enough to be able to do this and go to school, and I think all healthcare professionals are in the same boat. We got a gift to be able to do this. And now's the time to use that gift.
Absolutely. And just to conclude, I believe that while it's easier for doctors and healthcare professionals to recognize this gift that they have of why they do what they do, I think each individual person, no matter who they are, no matter what they do, if God created them, they have a specific purpose to accomplish. Each of us in our own way, each of us is indispensable in God's overall plan for creation. And therefore, the challenge is on us to figure out, what would God want me to do at this moment in time? How would God want me to respond to the situation, given the gifts, the resources, the skills, the tools, the knowledge that I have been given? Each one of us is challenged to rise to the occasion and to do our very best, and to continue having faith and trust in God Almighty, even though we can't always understand the why and the mysteries of His ways.
Well said, as always.
Well, thank you, Alex, for joining us. Much appreciated. And we want to just end off with a prayer and a blessing that all those who are in need of healing should find that healing. It should be a healing of body and soul, a complete holistic healing for their physical ailments or spiritual ailments, whatever they're in need of healing. And God willing, we should merit to see the ultimate global healing that the world awaits, which is the final redemption with Mashiach, our righteous Redeemer. Amen.
And I'll say, Amen, God. One thing we've learned in this crisis, as we see the disproportionate effect on the underserved, the underprivileged, is now more than ever that tzedakah is important in our lives, that we need to take care of each other. We need to do more than watch out for ourselves. And I think in order for this world to become a better place, this event, this crisis is giving us an opportunity to look outside ourselves and to see, how can we help our neighbors? How can we help those who are poor, those who are in need, those who have healthcare disparities, who can't get to healthcare, children and people in homes where there's child abuse and intimate partner violence that's on the rise because people are stuck at home. We need to look after each other. And now we can see that we can and we should. And I just hope that when this is all done, and it'll take a while, we can keep on thinking about that and keep on serving each other. And doing that, we're serving God. I know that.
Thank you. And you mentioned tzedakah, so I just wanted to put it out there that if you did enjoy this program, we hope that you'll consider making even a small contribution to B'nai Abraham Chabad, to your spiritual home, and to keep our mission alive. And God willing, each of us will be able to make a difference in the world in our own unique way.
Stay safe and stay well.
Amen. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. And if you do have questions or comments that you wanted to share, I invite you to send your comments either here below on the video, or you can also email them to me, rabbi@phillyshul.com, and we will do our best to address them next time. Thank you.